Yeah, Overlord. Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L. Now let's talk some Overlord. Episode 5. Alright, guys, we're pretty much done with this arc. As we saw in the end, everything's hunky-dory. The Overlord crew got what they wanted and we can move on. But you know, that's kind of oversimplifying a lot of what happened in the episode. And on that note, this episode was pretty fun overall. This was, well, the first scene at the beginning had a lot of the things that I was really excited to see, just because they were some of the funnier moments from the manga when I was reading it. So I was really into it. I think this episode of Overlord pretty much nailed it because I guess let's say it was around episode 2 and 3. Those episodes focused more on the lizard folk or the lizard men. I like calling them lizard folk, but yeah, it focused more on them. Whereas this episode had a much more fair balance because we had the Ainz bit at the beginning, which was totally motivated and moved by the quirks of those particular characters, Ainz and the Floor Guardians, whereas the other episodes didn't really feature them too much unless they had to move the plot. And then you had the lizard men and their plight towards the second half of the episode. I think it was a really well balanced episode. I think it worked really well. I was really into it. Now, mind you, we know the reason we had the lizard folk taking up a lot of the screen time was because we had to establish them with the audience. That's not a big issue, but when you do see the Overlord characters again and they're doing their own little thing, it is funny and it does make for a fun time. Like right off the bat, I could tell you my highlights for that first bit with the Overlord crew was, well, everything that's involving Shaltir and Albedo. Oh, my words. Albedo to some degree. She was also funny, but I think Shaltir really stole the scene. And then Ainz, and when he's peeking in on our favorite lizard couple, I think I was so excited for that. That was so funny. I mean, that one's, you know, that's kind of like what you would see in a parody, right? Like, you have the evil guy, he's spying on everyone, he's being super sneaky, he's using his magic, he's spying to see what they're doing, and then all of a sudden, he runs into some lizard porn, and it's like, oh, yeah, shit, I forgot, when animals are in danger, they feel the need to procreate, and it's just, it's funny. And of course, in that whole process, you also have other things that are kind of the gag with the Overlord, or sorry, the Floor Guardian crew popping up, like everyone's insistence to agree with Ainz, and it's just this episode, it was really, I wouldn't say it's in the forefront, but it's a little bit more distinct here because we have Demiurge. Whenever Ainz says something, it's like he's speaking the word of God. Well, actually, yeah, that's totally what it is, and they will always agree with him. It was just, it's a funny little thing. And it just makes for a fun, I guess, couple of, I think it was 8 minutes, 10 minutes about around those Floor Guardians. Really enjoyed it though. Now let's see, one of the only other highlights that I would really point out is just, it's nice that Ainz is a person who's aware of Shaltir's specific characterizations, and he isn't shying away from it. And this is just like a note that we know from the beginning of Overlord, but it's nice compared to other anime. It's nice that he isn't oblivious, but then again, Ainz in particular is a character that's designed to be a bit more competent than the average character, so that's cool. Moving on from that, let's just run into the next part, which I call Cocytus is the man, and just going through that bit. So Cocytus is the man, and he goes and destroys everything. So lizard folk versus Cocytus. The most important thing here, I think, is to just appreciate what Cocytus and what this part kind of goes for, in that what ultimately happens is that you have these characters going through the heroic journey. They're going through the heroic steps, they're going through the heroic monologues, and then this is one of those cases where it doesn't matter how heroic you are, you're still fighting a level 80 monster when you are probably level 20. There is that kind of sense of anticlimactic sense. It's the anticlimactic sense. One Punch Man does it a lot. Overlord did it for this arc, and this is one of those times where you can call it pretty much a deconstruction, because in this type of narrative, if you were having the heroic story, you would expect that the heroes would win against the overwhelmingly evil monster after trying hard enough, after having their moments, after coming up with good strategies. The heroes would somehow win. You know, the narrative would support the heroes in this case. What you have ultimately here, and you kind of like see it with the way they execute some of the kill shots, which were all very impressive. I'm glad they didn't back down from that. I think that's as bloody as the manga did it. I think. But I do believe that when you have these things going up and facing off against Cocytus, and then you have this Cocytus slashing them down. If you look at those scenes, they're very striking, and I think they don't have that much music playing behind it. So, you know, it makes for a nice visual experience. You have the lizards going in with momentum, and then Cocytus just stopping it just straight up. The heroic journey or the heroic narrative isn't going to be helping the lizards, and this is just a case of like, it's refreshing to see this just because the amount of anime that does this is low. Well, yeah, the amount of anime that does this is less compared to the amount of anime that make this their thing. And there are some really choice lines in this that are just delivered with so much frankness that, well, yeah, like, to some degree, it's just it's kind of admirable and also kind of funny, like such as when Cocytus tells them that they're not good enough for him to put in a second sword in his hand. Like, even in the heroic narrative, you might have a case where the character is like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna respect you, and because I respect you, I'm gonna use my real weapon. Whereas here, Cocytus is just like, I respect you, but I'm sorry, you're not worth it. You know, depending on how you work either of those two situations, they feel really good when you're watching it. But for this one, it was just like, yeah, Cocytus is just gonna kill them. They're not gonna, yeah, no, nothing. Anticlimax is like one of the regular techniques of Overlord in general. Anyway, the fight portion, pretty good. People got wiped out. There was a visually striking situation. It just showed how much power Cocytus has. I hope, you know, to some degree, I hope that Cocytus, well, actually, any of the 4 Guardians are ever tested by anyone inside the New World, because that would suck. Anyway, moving on to the Cocytus and Ainz part, the ones with, like, pretty much the wrap-up bit at the end of the episode. Because the wrap-up is with the one that shows, like, really all the development that Cocytus has gotten and where he's putting his mind at. The notes I had for this spot were pretty much what Cocytus was saying. Like, Cocytus spoke back to Ainz when Ainz was saying something about discarding the lizard man. He brought up a really great suggestion in using the lizard men for raised dead experiments, which was really smart when you consider that what Cocytus was effectively doing was that he was offering, like, Ainz something that he would want that he didn't realize he wanted, right? This is really good on Cocytus' part because it's showing that he understands Ainz's goals, and again, he also developed the backbone. Like, this is pretty simple to see when you're watching it, but you know, it does, we should note it because this is one of the main goals of this arc when it came from what Ainz was planning. Moving on, Cocytus acted for himself in calling Crush over there, and I liked this because I wasn't sure we were going to get it, but we confirmed it with Demiurge nodding at Ainz that he did not do anything. He did not help him with any of this. So this was entirely Cocytus. This was entirely his own will making the moves. And so on that grounds, how could you not be happy for Cocytus and Ainz when the whole plot, or at least the whole goal for this, was Cocytus developing a sense of self, or not developing a sense of self, but like bolstering his current sense of self. So that was really good. Really appreciated that. I think that was great. I think Cocytus is the man, and I feel really bad for the lizard folk, but hey, them's the chops. That said, what we get towards the end, Ainz has opened up the possibility for them to be revived, which is cool. And so we end off with the episode with Crush. Now, that whole segment, the highlight is obviously when she says that she'll offer her body, if that's what it comes down to. And you know, there's some hilarity in that, but then like right before that, you see that the way that Ainz was like kind of stroking her neck, and it's like, you can't fault the girl for thinking that. Like, that was a relatively like suggestive scene because I knew it was coming, so I was like, Ainz, you're kind of touching her up there. It kind of looks like you're being a little bit But that was funny. Albedo and Chaltier's faces was, again, those two bring the comedy. But ultimately what Ainz is giving her, like the way that he said it to Cocytus, you know, you gave them the stick, now you give them the carrot. I think this was a good move. And there is another aspect of Ainz's characterization that we do have to like keep in mind here, is that Ainz in particular, we see him falter a lot when it comes to his inner monologues, because he doesn't know what he's doing when it comes to the villainous planning. This is something that Ainz makes clear. That's the comedy of his character. But there is a side of him that's ruthlessly effective, that being the side that got nurtured from his time working in the real world. Ainz, or Momonga, since that was his initial name, was a man in the corporate world, and he does know sale tactics. So when you're looking through the episode, he also is mildly aware of how to encourage good work in the workforce. And we see this at the very beginning when he was complimenting someone on their hard work for making the building. I think it was one of the twins. I can't remember which one, but it was one of the two dark elves. He was the way he words his praise is designed in such a way, or at least designed in the way that the narrative believes would give the workers motivation. So when it comes back to Crush, what he's ultimately doing is that he wants to make this sale, right? So he's trying to make the sale, so he's giving her something she wants in order to make her say yes. And it's like not that hard, like saying it out loud. Of course, yes, obviously, if you want them to say yes, overwhelm them with something you want. But there is like some amount of salesman psychology that goes into it. When it comes to convincing people, and also when it comes to managing workers, Ainz's innate knowledge does really well. And then when it comes particularly to the sales knowledge, it's a manipulative practice that when you have a skull face doing it to you, seems even more manipulative. But it's a practice that originated in a very human way. So I really like that bit. And ultimately we end off the episode with Crush and Zaryusu back. And I was looking forward to the word slurring kind of, but I didn't realize how effective it could be when you're actually hearing someone talk it, because like when you're reading it, it's like, all right, this is unfortunate, but then you hear that the way that they intonate it kinda in the episode, and along with the slurring, when Zaryusu's like asking for people to be revived, there is that layer of patheticness and reverence that's in the voice, and I think it worked really well, because here you have this guy, he sounds like a fool, but he's still kind of pleading, so he's pretty much making a fool of himself, but he's doing it for the right reasons. Well, from the perspective of the Lizardman, he's doing it for the right reasons. It adds to the helplessness of the situation when you have his words impaired like that, though. You know, like that layer of patheticness it hit. This one definitely hit. Like I can't help but like just slightly be moved just by hearing it, just because like shit, man, this kind of sucks for him. But anyway, that's the episode. Overall, I think it was a very effective episode. I really enjoyed it. We're done now. We can move on. But, you know, now we have to ask the question, like, did this arc work for the casual viewer? I have no idea. I haven't really been checking the reception for Overlord, but it should have. I think most people can understand the basic, what this arc was trying to go for. And if anything, for me personally, I enjoyed the arc. I thought it had its function, and you know, I think this episode is probably my highlights in general. But that last bit with Zaryusu pleading for the lives of his friend and his brother, that's the bit that reminded me, or like just proved to me, like I did get a little bit invested into the whole struggle with the Lizardman. So I'm happy. As a viewer, I'm really happy, because that's what I want to get out of my shows. I want to feel for the characters. So that's it. 14 minutes in. Let's end it there, guys. Thanks for watching, like always, and yeah, till next time. I hope you have a great day. Let me know what you thought of Overlord down below. Also, I'm uploading a highlights reel from the episode onto the channel, just because like I need clips for anime editing in the future, and I figured if anyone else needs clips, just go to the highlight video. It's like it'll be uploaded right with this video. They're just I don't think it's gonna be more than 2 minutes long, but yeah, it's there if you want to watch highlights or something. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Till next time, I hope you have a great day.